box is marked Big Bad Toy Store. One thing many people don't know about Big Bad Toy Store is their warehouse is built on an ancient Indian burial ground that was the scene of satanic rituals, witch burnings, and 5 John Denver Christmas specials.
Oh, John Denver.
So here we got the Trick or Treat Studios Shining Prop Replica Axe. This is interesting. I think the whole handle is foam, so it feels a little floppy, but the hammer's like that, I guess, so it should be okay. I think it's just kind of a strange fit. So let me open this up and get a better look. Alright, overall a pretty simple prop, but decently done. The handle has some pretty good wood grain going on with it. It looks not too much like foam. It is probably a little light to really come off as wood, or maybe it's just a shine on it. I'm not sure. Something about it definitely reads as fake, but I can't quite place what it is. It just looks a little plasticky, but it's not too bad. And the axe head itself is pretty nice. It works better with an axe than like some of their knives because it is supposed to be a bit thicker. You can see the wood handle sticking through there on the top. And then we've got the pick there at the back. Of course, Trick or Treat Studios props always have a pretty visible seam line on them, which is a bit of a bummer. So, yeah, I don't know. They're always definitely props, but not too bad. What I was mentioning when I was holding it in the package is that there is definitely like some wiggle if you were to actually try to hit something with the axe. It definitely has a fair amount of give there. And also when you're holding it, because it's kind of long this way, you could feel it squish when you grab onto it. And I think that wasn't as noticeable with the mallet handle because it was round and skinnier. So it's a little more noticeable here. It feels a little bit more like a prop, but it's still pretty cool.
So in something a little different than the usual, I watched the documentary Killer Legends. I actually really enjoyed this one. I'm not somebody who's really into like the true crime horror side of thing or real life serial killers. That, I don't know. I like the fantasy aspect of horror movies, and it gets a little maybe too real when it's this kind of stuff. But I think they handled it in a really interesting way. The basic idea was to look at urban legends and then where they came from in like a true crime way. So, the hook-handed killer story, which is in, everything from I Know What You Did Last Summer to Night of the Creeps. They kind of investigate like what led to that. They look at the poisoned Halloween candy myths and stuff like that. And I really enjoyed what they had. I honestly was really wishing it would have gone on longer. When the movie was finished, I felt like there was a lot more that I wish they would have explored, a lot of other myths they could have done. And I think that would probably be a good basis for a TV series or something, just to continue this documentary in a more serialized format. Especially because the opening credits, they showed some stuff that I kind of wish they would have gone further into. They begin using the Cropsey myth as a framework, not the burning Cropsey, but the basically child abductor from, it was Long Island, the mental institution that was kind of in the center of all that legend. And that was just briefly touched on, but there is a whole documentary on Cropsey, so that's out there if you want to see it. I guess all this stuff probably has plenty on it. But I think the opening credits showed some other kind of famous legends that they never even mentioned in the documentary itself. I think they showed the Goatman's Bridge from Denton, Texas, which I used to live right near, and I drove past that thing a couple times a week usually for a little while there. I don't know, I'm a sucker for that myth just because I used to be so close to that location. I was kind of hoping they would have covered that one, but no such luck. I know there is other stuff out there on it. I guess that gives it a high recommend from my perspective because it left me wanting more in the best way possible. So that's definitely a good thing.
Today I'm heading out to the Jacksonville Zoo. I did this last year as well. They usually do a good bit of decorating for the Halloween season. I had gone to their Halloween event like years ago. It was definitely way too much of a kids event, but you'd expect that being a zoo. But some of the decorations are actually really cool. Though right now I'm looking off in the distance, kind of towards the direction where it is. I'm on top of a bridge right now, driving down, and there's some big black smoke clouds coming from vaguely the area where the zoo is. So I hope that's not coming from the zoo itself and coming from something else.
about a year ago, I did my first real, well, decent Jason Voorhees costume. I did the part 3, so I had the hood, the hockey mask, and just the basic clothes. It was a fairly easy Jason to pull off because he's still more or less human at that stage. But this year for Dragon Con, I decided to go a little more all out with it. I decided to do the Savini Jason from Friday the 13th, the game. So this is an undead Jason. Every last bit of him's covered in either clothing or effects makeup of some sort. And it was a lot more complex than putting together that part 3 costume. I did film along the way, but I never really finished putting everything together into a cohesive video. So because I don't really have a whole lot of content for this week, I'm going to throw that in here, take the parts that I did film and bring them to you guys to see, and I'll try to do some cleaning up in between to kind of fill in the gaps that I left in my kind of hasty filming. The problem with this really was that I had a lot of things going on before Dragon Con, and then immediately after Dragon Con I was flying out to Colorado for some robotics stuff. So it was really up against the wall with time to get everything together, and filming kind of fell by the wayside. But let's go ahead and take a look at what went into this, and when this leaves off, basically I'm going to start prepping it for Spooky Empire later on this month.
So, in keeping with the idea of doing this costume on the cheap, to do the arms for this version of Jason, I decided to get some kind of like almost elbow length nylon gloves. I guess they're nylons, and kind of like a spandexy material, whatever it is. And then using silicone sealant, basically, to paint the entire arm and let it kind of look all like burnt flesh. So this is the one that I currently am working on, and just basically have it on my arm waiting for it to set enough so I can take it off. But if we go up here, we have the one that I've already done. So this one is dry, and I actually think it came out pretty well. Still a little more work to do. Obviously, you need to paint it, need to add fingernails to it, but I think it's turned out all right. And I'm basically doing a similar method here with the undershirt, and that's going to have all the charred flesh. And I'm going to wire all the LEDs into that. These are going to get LEDs as well, and that'll hopefully create the illusion that there is a burnt corpse underneath all of this. So I initially just painted this with standard paint, but the paint kind of cracked off when I tried to move it. So what I'm using is gray Plasti Dip. The idea is that this stuff is flexible enough that it's going to let me move the glove without having the paint crack that goes over top of it. I've used it before on masks, I've used it on EVA foam. It works pretty well, so I'm hoping it'll work with these gloves. And then I did the same thing on the shirt. The shirt basically got the exact same treatment as the gloves are getting. So this I'm going to flip over and add the silicone to the back, and then it'll be the world's most uncomfortable shirt. Well, this doesn't work at all with one hand. So this is the basic idea. This I did a little quicker and sloppier than I did the front, but it's going to basically be the same effect at the end of the day. So it's just a lot of silicone all over the shirt. This version of Jason's supposed to be all burnt up and gross and nasty, so I didn't notice anything really on the costume that looked like it was supposed to be like bone or anything coming through, so just kind of just nasty flesh and then fire, which we'll get to later. For now, that'll do. This will dry, and then it'll get painted gray primer like the front, and then detailing from there. So we're back to square one or square two with this glove because I forgot the old truthism that silicone only sticks to silicone. And this stuff I don't think is actually paintable. I know they do make paintable silicone caulk, but this isn't it. Or it seems to not be it. I didn't even really check, but I'm pretty sure it's not. So basically where I'm at is I am removing all of the paint off of it. It just is peeling right off. It's really simple just to remove it from the glove because it's not sticking at all. So I don't know if this is a symptom of the Plasti Dip not working the way I wanted it to and not being able to bond flexibly to the silicone, or if it's because I painted it first and then forgot that I needed to use Plasti Dip and then used the Plasti Dip, and it was just basically the Plasti Dip adhered to the paint and not to the silicone itself. So I'm gonna give it another go with the silicone or the Plasti Dip and see how that goes. But I wanted to comment on peeling the stuff off of the glove. It was easier to wear the glove to peel it off because it helped it kind of expand and crack a little more. But doing this is kind of the sensation of what I would imagine if you could painlessly peel your own skin from your hand. I don't know, it's kind of an unnerving feeling. It's just really strange to do.
I bought this very inexpensive Jason hood off of Amazon. It was maybe about $30, which, I mean, compared to paying for the ones that I've bought before, that's a hell of a lot cheaper. And yeah, it's okay. It's not bad. It's very thin latex. I don't know if it's going to be durable over time, but I'm hoping to maybe just get 2 cons out of it, or even just if I can get 1 convention out of it and then replace it with something more accurate, and I'd be happy. But it's, I mean, it's a decent shape. I have a large head and it fits me all right. One of the weird things about it is that I pulled most of it out, but it has hair across the back, and it was all in this kind of torn up section. It's kind of a weird mask. I almost feel like it's supposed to be an amalgam between Jason Goes to Hell and Freddy vs. Jason. It has the kind of, you know, bloody exposed area around the face. It has the indentations where the mask strap goes, but the hair, I guess Jason Goes to Hell has hair. So maybe it is just Jason Goes to Hell, but something about it screams Freddy vs. Jason to me as well. But the hair was strictly in that bloody area, which is, like, why would he have hair there and not anywhere else? Kind of weird. But I sprayed this down with Plasti Dip. I don't really care that there's a little bit of hair in there. That's kind of fine to me. Plus the mask strap will go there. But that'll let me paint this and get it looking more like it's Jason. And I did get in just this morning my blank hockey mask. I actually have one on order as well that's pre-weathered, and somebody else did all the work for it, but I saw these on Amazon for $10 and I was like, might as well just grab one just in case.
So I ordered this guy here, which is kind of just some costume shackles. You know, I was a little worried that the chain on it might not match the chain I already bought for the rest of the costume, but it absolutely does. It's the exact same fake plastic chain. The paint's a little different. Doesn't matter. Probably going to do a little extra painting on these anyway, but that'll look good together. I have 2 more sections of this chain coming in. It's going to be a lot of chain. It's going to be something like 20 feet of chain on this costume because there's a lot of it. It doesn't look like it from the pictures, but especially on my fat ass. Alright, so I have gone ahead and weathered up the mask. It came black from Amazon, and yeah, I went ahead and cut away the mouth section there on the side. I carved the gouges into the front of the mask there. Then I attacked basically the whole thing with very low grit sandpaper, so it left a lot of just scuffs and scrapes all over it, making it look really nasty and gross. I also went in and kind of Dremelled away at some of the silver connectors there. I might add some paint to them, but at least now they don't look nice and shiny. I noticed when I was Dremelling the mask that I could see my reflection in them, and I realized that's probably not something this Jason should be able to have going on. I have also started painting the hood. As you can see here, it kind of got a bit of a flame effect. Yeah, it's hard to paint flames in a way that's convincing, especially when you're me. I guess. I don't know. I'm not very good at it. But I think it looks alright. It gives kind of the right illusion, and then I think once I get the LEDs in there, hopefully, it will kind of bring it to life a little more and make it less noticeable that I just painted it on, because it'll be lit. Obviously, you can see through some of the hood into the face. It doesn't exactly go totally where the mask is, basically. But once the blank hood is on underneath it, I think it'll be alright. Went ahead and added my spikes to the shirt. I'm not totally in love with how this came out. I mean, it's really hard to find good reference for the spikes from the photos in the game. So mine are definitely way too thick because I made them out of foam, but I wanted them to be able to stand up on their own, and I was afraid that if I made them out of thinner foam or plastic or something, that they were just going to flop over. So these had a wide enough base that they would actually stand upright. They were gooped onto the shirt, and I think it's going to hold. It feels like they're going to hold. Yeah, I think they're going to be alright. And I did do some test fits with the overshirt before I glued everything down just to make sure that it wasn't going to interfere
with the rest of the costume and that things weren't going to get knocked off when I put the other shirt on. I think it's going to be alright. So this part's done. The back of Savini Jason's mask has this little D-ring in the back of it. And the mask I bought, since it was a cheap blank off Amazon, obviously does not. So what I've kind of worked on, and I'm way too zoomed in here, is kind of forging my own. I was thinking about just going to the hardware store and buying a real metal one, and I realized that that would probably be heavy and uncomfortable, especially on the back of my head. So I decided to just take some 3D printer filament, some PLA filament I had lying around, and basically built one out of that. I may try it a second time. This is a little probably too long top to bottom. It looks like it's almost kind of squared off in the picture, but I feel like I could take something like this, go ahead and paint that silver. Actually, probably paint it black, and maybe silver and then some black on top of it or something, give it a weather effect. But I think that will work and not be too uncomfortable. Okay, second attempt, which went a lot faster than the first attempt, looks a lot better. That's a lot closer to the shape I was wanting, so I'm going to go with that. There is a little bump there where they kind of fused together when I melted them together. I'm just going to say that that looks like a weld, and we'll go with that. This is the back side of the D-ring after being painted, and I'm gluing it down to the strap, and what I'm using to glue it down with is, now it's called Goop, but it's E6000. This is in black, so it should actually blend in. I bought this for something else completely, but the fact that it's black is somewhat flexible. I'm hoping it will hold. And this will all be a bit against the back of the head, so nobody's ever going to see this side of it. Alright, so I've added some plastic here in the eyes, and I've masked off everything else. I'm going to try to airbrush in some orange into the eyes so I can get kind of a burning effect going on. So we'll see how this goes. Alright, so I don't know if it came out exactly how I wanted it to, but I still have to be able to see out of it, so it is important that it's not too crazy, and I am going to try to put lights behind it as well. We'll see once it's dry and I can take the masking off, maybe remove a little on this lens here, because you can see it's pretty full inside the eye socket there. But the one here on the left, or the right I guess, technically when you're wearing it, came out pretty well, I think. It actually looks like fire. This one's just kind of a confused mess, but I think it'll do. Okay, so I'm putting the lights in the mask here, and I'm wiring them up basically to a JST connector so I can plug them into the hood, and then everything's going to plug into a battery in my pocket or whatever, but this is just so the mask can be disconnected really quickly and easily. But this is driving me nuts. I thought for a while that all of the LEDs I bought were duds. They're supposed to run off 12 volts. I was running them off 11.1 3-cell LiPoly battery, and yeah, they weren't turning on, and I was convinced something was completely wrong, and I found out that it's actually black wire to positive, red wire to negative. So this goes against everything I've ever learned in electronics, but I am wiring the two black wires from the LEDs into the red connector of the JST. I hate this. Okay, I want to do a little wire management before I flip this back right side out, but yeah, the mask lights up. And I don't have a connector right now, but I do have the connector, and I did test it will light up the hockey mask. So this works. It's time to get it wearable. So I'm trying to use Plasti Dip to help keep the wires in place, so I'm hoping it will kind of adhere it to the latex. I don't know what I'm going to do with this rat's nest here. This is something special.
So unfortunately at this point, I run out of actual build footage on this costume. Most of the rest wasn't really all that interesting. It was some basic weathering on the outer shirt and pants, which was really just taking sandpaper and things to it. And then fortunately I ended up having to ditch most of the LEDs except for the two in the eyes of the mask. As I continued working on the project, I realized not only were that many LEDs unmanageable and unsafe around my head, but also that they still looked like LEDs stuck into latex as opposed to fire. So all but the eyes were scrapped and just left as paint as opposed to actual lighting effects. I also ended up building those gloves for this costume 3 separate times. You saw earlier I had some failings with the painting of them, and that happened even with the second version. For the second version I bought paintable silicone and basically used the exact same method as you saw earlier, and it still ended up not really painting all that well, and it made the gloves almost impossible to put on. So my third and final attempt was to just find some black silicone, paint the fire effects straight onto the nylon gloves first, and then put the black silicone around it, giving the effect that the fire was recessed and the burnt flesh was over top of it. This actually worked pretty well, and they weren't too bad to wear either. The material was even thin enough that I could manage to still use the touchscreen on my smartphone without having to take the glove off. The photo you see here is from the parking lot at Dragon Con. I walked around in this costume most of Sunday evening, and it was a lot of fun. I got some decent reactions to it and took a decent amount of pictures as well. Unfortunately, here in the picture you can see the mask neck has come untucked, and part of the shirt isn't where it's supposed to be. But overall, I think it worked pretty well.
Hey, how's it going? I framed this terribly, so my head is mostly cut out of the frame. But that's okay, you don't need to see my ugly face for this. Today we're doing an unboxing. This is from Escape Theory Studios. If you look at the screen right now, you can maybe tell what it might be. Wow, this is heavier than I anticipated. Here's the bottom of the damn bag. It's like the bag with no end. Here we go. Okay, so this is my new Jason mask. So this was my Savini Jason hood that I wore to Dragon Con, and honestly, it's not a bad mask. For what it is, for the price especially, it's pretty good. My big problem is I have a big head, and putting this on, it just is very, very tight. I was wearing a kind of balaclava thing, I guess, under it to kind of block out skin from showing through the face. It was very hot under this. It was very tight across my head. And then when I would move my neck, unintentionally even, it would pull the neck out from under my shirt because I wanted to have it tucked in to give the illusion that it was skin. And it just came untucked quite a bit. This is the Escape Theory Studios mask. This is designed to be a display bust initially, but I asked them if they could cut out the eyes and put the slit up the back. They actually shipped it with a balloon inside of it, I guess to let it keep its shape. So it is a very, very heavy, thick latex pole on here. I can say that for sure, which is good because I was very worried the other hood I had was gonna rip, but this looks pretty robust. There we go. Yes! So those are my Jason masks compared to each other. Big difference. Much longer neck on this one. Something I definitely really wanted. It does have the nice fiery eyes, but my hawk does have built-in light-up eyes to it. So I don't really need these for the effect. But let's just see here anyway. Plug this in. It's got fiery red eyes now. So yeah, this is the first part of my upgrades for this costume. I thought originally this was going to get here in time for Dragon Con because it was a 3-week wait time and I ordered just about 3 weeks ahead of time. Obviously didn't come until a couple weeks after, but that's fine. I'm going to get this ready for Spooky Empire, so it'll be going for that. And I'm getting the pieces to make a new undershirt, which is basically the chest skin. Before, the shirt I was wearing was very, very baggy, very heavy. I learned with the gloves how to kind of do a better version of that, so I'm going to replicate those steps onto the undershirt, so hopefully that will be more flesh-like. But yeah, that's it for this unboxing. I'm going to try this thing on and see how it looks.